On the third day of a June heat wave, at about 4:30 in the afternoon, a 74-year-old retired schoolteacher named Eleanor stood up from her living room couch in St. Louis, took 2 steps toward her kitchen, and collapsed. The paramedics who reached her 19 minutes later found her blood pressure at 80/50. Eleanor had taken the same 2 blood pressure pills every morning for 11 years without a single problem. That week, in 96-degree heat, those same 2 pills nearly ended her life. And here is what nobody told her. The pills did not malfunction. The pills did exactly what they were designed to do. The heat changed the rules. And no one had ever explained the new rules to her. Per the CDC, extreme heat kills more Americans in a typical year than hurricanes, floods, and tornadoes combined. And the large majority of those deaths are people over 65. What the statistics rarely mention is that a significant share of those people were taking blood pressure medication, and that the medication itself, in the heat, may have been part of what went wrong. If you are past 65 and you take any daily blood pressure pill, a water pill like hydrochlorothiazide, a beta blocker like metoprolol, an ACE inhibitor like lisinopril, or a calcium channel blocker like amlodipine, the next few months of summer are the most dangerous months of your year for that prescription. And there are 5 specific mistakes that turn an ordinary hot afternoon into an emergency room visit. In the next 25 minutes, I am going to walk you through all 5, with the drug names, the temperature numbers, and the exact questions to bring to your doctor. 2 things before we start. One of these 5 mistakes does not involve a blood pressure pill at all. It involves a bottle that is probably sitting in your medicine cabinet right now. And one piece of advice printed on every summer safety poster in America, advice you have heard 1,000 times, actually sent one of the men in this video to the hospital. I will show you exactly how, because the way it went wrong for him is the way it could go wrong for you. Here is exactly what I am going to walk you through today. Promise number 1 is the 2 most dangerous hours of a summer day for anyone taking a beta blocker, and the specific heat index number that should change how you plan your morning. Promise number 2 is why the advice to simply drink more water backfired on a 66-year-old golfer taking hydrochlorothiazide, and what the research says he should have been asking his doctor about instead. Promise number 3 is the common pain reliever, not a blood pressure drug, that combines with 2 blood pressure medications into something kidney specialists literally call the triple whammy. Promise number 4 is a 10-second check you can do in your own bathroom that can signal dehydration hours before you ever feel dizzy. And promise number 5 is the single worst decision a dizzy person can make about their own pills on a hot day, the dose decision, plus the one question to ask your doctor before the next heat wave arrives, so you never have to make that decision alone. I work in medication safety education for older adults. I spend my time going through case reports, drug interaction data, and the published guidance from pharmacists, cardiologists, and geriatric specialists, and translating it into plain language, because a 15-minute appointment almost never has time to cover what heat does to a prescription. Everything in this video is educational, not medical advice, and every person in it is a composite drawn from published case patterns. Never change a dose without talking to your doctor. Before we go further, do me one favor. Drop your age and the blood pressure medication you take in the comments below. It helps me plan future videos around the drugs this audience actually uses. Now let me tell you the whole of Eleanor's story, because every one of the 5 mistakes is hiding inside it. Eleanor is 74. She taught 4th grade in the St. Louis public schools for 31 years, and she has lived in the same brick house since 1989. Her doctor put her on 2 medications in her early 60s, lisinopril, an ACE inhibitor, at 20 milligrams each morning, and hydrochlorothiazide, a water pill, at 25 milligrams. For 11 years, that combination kept her blood pressure close to 128/78, and she never missed a dose. Eleanor considered herself careful. In the second week of June, a heat dome settled over Missouri. Daytime highs reached 96 degrees. More important, and we will come back to this, the nighttime lows never dropped below 79. On day 1 of the heat wave, Eleanor spent about 90 minutes in her garden in the morning, came in, felt fine. On day 2, she did the same, but her right knee was aching from kneeling in the flower beds, so she took 2 ibuprofen from the bottle in her medicine cabinet, the way she had done 100 times over the years. On day 3, she took 2 more ibuprofen with breakfast, along with her lisinopril and her water pill, and went out to water the tomatoes. She was sweating less than she expected, which she took as a good sign. It was not a good sign. By early afternoon, she felt lightheaded, so she did the sensible thing and sat down on the couch in front of a fan. She did not feel thirsty, so she did not drink much. Around 4:30, she stood up to start dinner, and her blood pressure, already pulled low by heat, by fluid loss, and by 3 days of accumulating strain on her kidneys, dropped through the floor. She was unconscious before she reached the kitchen. At the hospital, her creatinine, the main blood marker of kidney function, had roughly tripled from her baseline. The diagnosis was acute kidney injury on top of severe dehydration and orthostatic collapse. Eleanor spent 6 days in the hospital and 3 weeks in rehabilitation for the shoulder she fractured when she fell. Her kidneys recovered most of the way, but not all of the way. And here is the sentence her hospital pharmacist said to her daughter, the sentence that is the reason this video exists. Nothing your mother did that week would have been dangerous in October. Every single choice she made, the gardening, the ibuprofen, the small sips of water, the sitting quietly when she felt dizzy, was reasonable behavior for a cool month. The heat converted reasonable behavior into a chain of 5 mistakes. Eleanor is not unusual. Eleanor is exactly typical of the person these summer hospitalizations happen to. And if you take what she takes, her chain is your chain. So let me explain the mechanism, because once you see it, you can repeat it to anyone in your family in 3 sentences. In plain English, here it is. An aging body handles heat by moving blood to the skin, sweating, and holding on to fluid, and blood pressure pills are designed to interfere with exactly those 3 systems. That is not a flaw. Interfering with those systems is how the pills lower your pressure. The problem is that heat needs those systems at full power, and the pills keep them turned down. Start with the body itself. Research summarized by the National Institute on Aging shows that after about age 65, sweat glands produce noticeably less sweat. The sensation of thirst weakens, so you can be seriously dehydrated and feel no urge to drink, and the heart and blood vessels respond more slowly to temperature. So even with no medication at all, a 75-year-old in 95-degree heat is working with reduced equipment. Now layer the drugs on top, one class at a time. A water pill, like hydrochlorothiazide or furosemide, tells your kidneys to remove fluid every single day, no matter what the weather is doing. In January, that just lowers your pressure. In July, when you are also losing fluid through your skin, the pill and the heat are draining the same tank from two different taps. A beta blocker, like metoprolol or atenolol, puts a ceiling on your heart rate. Your main way of shedding heat is pumping more blood to the skin, and that requires the heart to speed up. On a beta blocker, it cannot speed up past the ceiling. Studies on thermoregulation have also found beta blockers can reduce blood flow to the skin and reduce sweating. That was Eleanor sweating less in the garden and thinking it was fitness. It was blockade. An ACE inhibitor like lisinopril or an ARB like losartan disables the kidney's emergency backup system. When blood volume drops, the kidney normally squeezes its own blood vessels in a specific pattern to keep filtering. These drugs block that squeeze. Again, on purpose, and in normal conditions that protects the kidney long term. But in a dehydrated body, the backup system is the only thing standing between the kidney and injury, and the drug has it switched off. And a calcium channel blocker like amlodipine widens your blood vessels around the clock, while heat is also widening them. So the two effects stack, and your pressure can sag much lower than either would cause alone. Now the hidden detail, the part the summer news segments almost never cover. The most dangerous day of a heat wave is usually not the hottest day. Epidemiologists who studied heat wave deaths, including the Chicago disaster of 1995 that killed more than 700 people, found that mortality climbs on the second and third day, and that the strongest predictor is the nighttime temperature. When nights stay hot, the body never gets its recovery window, and fluid losses and cardiovascular strain compound quietly from one day to the next. Remember Eleanor. Her nights never dropped below 79 degrees. She collapsed on day 3, not day 1. She was not felled by one hot afternoon. She was felled by a debt that had been compounding for 72 hours, while her pills kept every protective system dialed down. Eleanor is one pattern. Let me show you 3 more, because this danger wears different clothes depending on who you are. Walter is 68. He is a retired machinist outside Louisville, Kentucky, and he takes metoprolol at 50 milligrams twice a day, prescribed after a minor heart rhythm problem 4 years ago. Walter has mowed his own half-acre lawn for 30 years and considers it a point of pride. On a Saturday in late July, with a heat index of 102, he started the mower at 1:30 in the afternoon, the same time he always mows. 25 minutes in, he noticed something strange. He felt exhausted, almost drunk, but his heart did not feel like it was pounding. That is the trap of a beta blocker in heat. The pounding heart is the alarm bell your body normally rings, and metoprolol wraps that bell in a towel. Walter's core temperature was climbing toward heat exhaustion while his heart rate stayed close to its medicated ceiling, and because the usual alarm never sounded, he kept pushing. His neighbor found him sitting against the fence, confused, with hot, dry skin. In the emergency room, his temperature was 103.6. Walter spent 2 nights in the hospital. His cardiologist later told him that on his medication, afternoon mowing in July was, in her words, the single riskiest hour of his week. Now Doris, and Doris matters because she never went outside at all. Doris is 79, a widow on the 3rd floor of an apartment building on the west side of Chicago. She takes amlodipine and furosemide. During a 5-day August heat wave, her apartment, which has 1 window unit she rarely runs because of the electric bill, held an indoor temperature above 88 degrees day and night. Doris assumed heat warnings were for people out in the sun, but her furosemide kept pulling fluid every day. Her amlodipine kept her vessels dilated, while the indoor heat dilated them further. And by day 4, her daughter, calling from Milwaukee, noticed her mother's speech was slow and her answers were confused. Doris was admitted with dehydration and blood pressure of 84/52. This is the same profile as the majority of the Chicago 1995 deaths. Older adults, alone, indoors, in apartments that turned into slow ovens. If you take these medications, a hot bedroom at 2 in the morning counts as heat exposure just as much as a golf course at noon. And then there is Frank, the case that surprises people, the one that pays off the loop I opened at the top about the summer safety poster. Frank is 66, recently retired from a sales career in Fort Worth. Fit, plays golf 3 mornings a week, takes 25 milligrams of hydrochlorothiazide and nothing else. Frank knows the poster advice: drink plenty of water. So on a 98-degree morning, across 18 holes, Frank drank roughly 3 liters of plain water and was proud of himself. By the back 9, he had a headache. By lunch, he was nauseated and confused, and his golf partners, worried about a stroke, drove him to the emergency room. Frank did not have a stroke. Frank had hyponatremia, critically low sodium. His water pill had been flushing sodium out of his body all morning, while his sweat carried out more, and he replaced all of it with plain water and no salt at all. He diluted his own blood. Published case reports show this exact pattern: thiazide water pills plus heavy sweating plus large volumes of plain water lands older adults in the hospital every single summer. And the early symptoms, confusion, headache, unsteadiness, look exactly like the dehydration people think they are preventing. Drink more water is good advice for a 30-year-old on no medication. For a 66-year-old on a thiazide, hydration is a conversation to have with a doctor, not a slogan. 3 people, 3 different mistakes, 1 shared mechanism. Now let us get to the full list, in order, with what to actually do. Here are the 5 mistakes, sequenced by how urgently they can hurt you, along with the protective step for each one. Everything that follows is educational. The action in every single case starts with a conversation with your own doctor or pharmacist, because they know your kidneys, your doses, and your history, and I do not. Mistake number 1. Doing outdoor physical work in the afternoon window on a beta blocker. This is Walter's mistake, and it is first because it is the fastest to turn deadly. The most dangerous stretch of a summer day is roughly noon to 4 in the afternoon, when air temperature and accumulated radiant heat peak together. On metoprolol, atenolol, carvedilol, or any beta blocker, your heart cannot mount the response that outdoor exertion in that window demands, and your body's warning signal, the racing heart, is muted. The protective step has two parts. First, move mowing, gardening, and errands to before 10 in the morning, when pavement and air are at their coolest. Second, learn one number, the heat index, which combines temperature and humidity and appears in every weather app. Many heat safety guidelines treat a heat index above 90 as the caution zone for older adults. And if you are on a beta blocker, that is a reasonable number to bring to your doctor and ask, "At what heat index do you want me to stay indoors?" Get your own number from your own physician and write it down. Mistake number 2, treating hydration casually, in either direction, while taking a water pill. This covers Eleanor, who drank too little because her thirst signal was blunted, and Frank, who drank 3 liters of plain water and crashed his sodium. If you take hydrochlorothiazide, chlorthalidone, or furosemide, summer fluid is a planned quantity, not a feeling. Ask your doctor 2 specific questions before the next hot spell. How much fluid do you want me drinking on a 90-degree day, and should any of it contain electrolytes rather than being plain water? For some people with heart failure or kidney disease, fluid targets run in the opposite direction, which is exactly why this must be your doctor's number and not a poster's. The general principle to remember is simple. On a water pill, both too little and too much plain water can put you in a hospital bed, and only your prescriber can set your range. Mistake number 3, reaching for ibuprofen or naproxen for summer aches while you take an ACE inhibitor or an ARB plus a water pill. This is the mistake that is not a blood pressure pill, the one I promised at the start, and it was the third leg of Eleanor's collapse. Kidney specialists have an actual name for the combination of an ACE inhibitor, or ARB, a diuretic, and an anti-inflammatory pain reliever like ibuprofen. They call it the triple whammy, and studies of the combination have found it meaningfully raises the risk of acute kidney injury, with the danger highest in the first days after adding the pain reliever and higher still in hot weather when the kidneys are already fluid-starved. Each drug removes one of the kidney's 3 protections. The diuretic lowers the volume of blood reaching it. The ACE inhibitor blocks the vessel on the exit side from squeezing. The ibuprofen blocks the vessel on the entry side from opening. All 3 at once in a dehydrated August body, and the filter simply fails. The protective step. Before you take any over-the-counter pain reliever for more than a day, read the ingredient, and if it is ibuprofen or naproxen, call your pharmacist first. Tell them every blood pressure medication you take, and ask whether a different pain reliever may be safer for you in the heat. That phone call is free, takes 5 minutes, and it is precisely the call Eleanor never knew to make. Mistake number 4, standing up fast in the heat, especially after sitting, kneeling, or a warm shower. Heat pools blood in your widened vessels and in your legs. When you stand quickly, gravity pulls that pooled blood down, and a medicated system cannot clamp the vessels fast enough. Blood pressure to the brain drops for a few seconds, and that is the moment the hip fractures, the head strikes the counter, the summer ends in a rehabilitation facility. The protective steps here you can start today. When you rise on a hot day, do it in stages. Sit on the edge for a slow count of 10, Stand and hold something stable for another count of 10, then walk. Be extra careful after hot showers and after kneeling in the garden, the two classic triggers. And here is the 10-second bathroom check I promised, one that geriatric guidance commonly recommends for tracking hydration. Look at the color of your urine. Pale straw color generally suggests reasonable hydration. Dark yellow, the color of apple juice, is an early flag of dehydration that often shows up hours before dizziness does. It is a rough signal, not a diagnosis, and some vitamins and medications change the color, so mention it to your doctor. But as a free early warning system on a 95-degree day, it is hard to beat. Mistake number 5. Adjusting your own doses when the heat makes you feel bad. This is the dose decision, and it destroys people in both directions. Some people feel dizzy on day 2 of a heat wave, decide the pill is the problem, and skip it, and their pressure rebounds dangerously. Others feel their pressure must be spiking in the heat, take an extra pill, and drive their pressure into collapse. Never do either. Dizziness in a heat wave is information your doctor needs the same day. Because the honest answer is that many physicians do adjust blood pressure regimens seasonally. And there are published discussions in the medical literature of temporarily modifying certain medications during dehydration and extreme heat, sometimes called sick day guidance. But that adjustment is a medical decision built on your kidney numbers and made freelance on your bathroom counter. It becomes the single most dangerous act in this entire video. So here is the exact question I promised, the one to ask at your next appointment, before the heat arrives. Doctor, if we get a heat wave this summer, and I feel dizzy or weak, what do you want me to do about my medications that day? And at what point do you want a phone call? Write the answer on a card and put it on the refrigerator. That card is the difference between Eleanor's June and a normal one. Before we close, there is one more move, and almost nobody talks about it, including most summer safety coverage. It is not about your body at all. It is about where your pills spend the summer. Drug manufacturers test their products for stability at controlled room temperature, which the U.S. Pharmacopoeia defines as roughly 68 to 77 degrees Fahrenheit. Now think about where your medications actually sit in July. A parked car's glove box can pass 140 degrees in under an hour. A metal mailbox in full sun can exceed 120. And if you get 90-day supplies by mail order, your pills may bake in that box all afternoon. Even a bathroom cabinet with daily hot showers runs warm and humid for years. Heat and humidity can degrade certain medications, and nitroglycerin is the classic example pharmacists warn about. But blood pressure drugs are not immune, and a degraded pill can mean an unpredictable dose. 3 steps. Keep daily medications in a bedroom drawer, not the bathroom. Never leave a pill bottle in a parked car, not even for a pharmacy errand with one extra stop. And if you use mail order, track the delivery and bring the package in promptly, or ask the pharmacy about insulated shipping for summer months, which many large mail-order pharmacies offer if you request it. If your home is air-conditioned and your pills live in a cool drawer, this move is already handled, and you can ignore it. If your medications spend time in mailboxes, cars, or a hot bathroom, this is a 15-minute fix that protects every dose you take from June to September. If you take nothing else from this video, take this. Eleanor, Walter, Doris, and Frank were not careless people. They were careful people, using cool weather rules in hot weather, on medications that turn down the exact systems a body over 65 needs to survive the heat. The 5 mistakes are: afternoons of outdoor work on a beta blocker, unplanned hydration on a water pill, ibuprofen stacked on an ACE inhibitor and a diuretic, standing up fast when the heat has pooled your blood, and adjusting doses on your own instead of calling the person who prescribed them. The whole protective plan costs almost nothing. One conversation with your doctor about fluid targets and a heat index number, one phone call to a pharmacist before any pain reliever, one card on the refrigerator, one urine color glance, one cool drawer for the pill bottles. And remember the detail the news never covers. The killer is rarely the first hot afternoon. It is the second and third hot night, when the debt compounds quietly, while everyone assumes the worst is over. Check on the older people you love on night 2 and night 3 of a heat wave, not just day 1, and ask them one question. Are you dizzy when you stand up? That question, asked by a daughter in Milwaukee, is what saved Doris. If someone in your family is past 65 and takes even one blood pressure pill, send them this video before the next heat wave, because the 4 people you met today had no idea any of this was coming. And now you do. If it helped you, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel, because every subscriber helps this reach one more person who needs it before the hot months arrive. I will see you in the next video.